So I was sitting here thinking who I would want to narrate my life. I mean, John McEnroe is taken and Adam Sandberg was in one episode for Ben. So I narrowed it down to two people, Morgan Freeman and Captain Sisko from Deep Space Nine. Now that would be cool. Hi guys, my name is Maria Park and this is Approach to Nerd, and in this episode we are doing the spoiler review for the Netflix series Never Have I Ever. If you haven't seen my non-spoiler review, then I will link it below. This may be my very first cut video only because my boss during my lunch break tends to call me when I'm doing these reviews, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, so I already said that I liked the story a lot in my non-spoiler review. I love that this entire 10 episode run dealt with very serious things that a lot of people go through, myself included. Having lost my mother and my previous spouse, I know what it's like to go through grief, and grief basically takes many forms, and our main character, Devi, goes through a lot of them. The anger stage, the denial stage, the, painstakingly, I'm accepting it, acceptance phase. I mean, all of that happens within 10 episodes, which is pretty cool. But there were a lot of things also about these episodes that were very interesting in general, because we were not just dealing with the fact that Devi's father, who passed away from a heart attack during her recital, where she plays the harp. I'm assuming it's orchestra because it looked like a band room, but it could have been orchestra. But we didn't just deal with that. We also got to see different relationships and how they affect each other, like how Devi and her mother candidly did not get along a lot through this entire series. The mother and her both said horrible things to each other. For example, had I called my mother the B word, having a British mother, I would have been a little spot on the floor. So it was very odd for me to have someone who, especially, and this is just me generalizing because I don't know a lot about Indian culture, but from being married to a Korean American, having a half Chinese Vietnamese child, and knowing that in a lot of Asian cultures that you don't disrespect your parents, her just blasting out that B word was very weird to me. I mean, I just couldn't fathom that. I don't know. If anything was unrealistic to me in that series, it would have been that. But then again, I can't really say that because she is a first generation Indian American. So I don't know. I don't think she considers herself to be more Indian. As a matter of fact, in the series, Devi has a lot of problems embracing her Indian culture. She wants to be a regular American teenager. So yeah, her and her mother just don't get along. And the mother said some really hurtful things, saying she's not my daughter, basically to the father right before he died. And, Debbie overhearing that obviously caused some issues with her. It was traumatizing. So she doesn't feel like she has her mother, and she doesn't feel like she has her father anymore because he passed. So it's like, I can see that being the root of all of her problems. I guess my issue with this is how she treated her friends, Fabi and Eleanor. It's pretty wrong. I mean, she even says one line where my stuff is worse than yours, or great, or basically my stuff should have more focus because my dad died and I'm going through more than you guys are. And it's just like, it was actually pretty bad timing considering Fabi was coming out to her parents as gay, and Eleanor's mother had left again. And speaking of her friends Eleanor and Fabi, I actually really enjoyed them as characters. I think Fabiola is adorable. I think that Eleanor is crazy. Everything I've seen her in, though, has been crazy. So I don't think I've ever seen her in a serious role. But I do love how expressive Ramona was as Eleanor in this, because she's hilarious. She's absolutely hilarious. I wish they had addressed more of the competition between Eleanor and her mother. Her mother was jealous of her, and that is the reason that she left again in this series. So abandonment issues are played a lot in this. Like, both her and Ben have a lot in common. Ben's parents, Ben Gross, who is the rival of Devi, his parents are, super rich, but they have this offhand approach to parenting. They travel a lot. They basically throw money at him because that's what they feel parenting should be. So it's sad because he actually wants to have his parents more in his life. And then you have Eleanor, whose mother just took off to follow her acting career, and who, for the most part, Eleanor thought was on a cruise ship acting and was actually working at the local Mexican restaurant near them, the entire time for months, and never even reached out to her daughter. And when she finally does reach out, she starts a lot of drama by revealing a lot of secrets to people, and then figures out that her daughter is the lead in the play, and watches her daughter perform. And for some reason, it inspires her to go back out to try off-Broadway in New York again. But in my opinion, it was basically because she was jealous of Eleanor's ability. So that was interesting. Paxton, another character in this, drama, is basically the love interest of Devi. And for the most part, he's like a standard standoffish hot guy. If you ever watched My So-Called Life, he's Jordan, basically. Half Japanese, half, I guess, white. I love that they gave him a little bit of depth because he's very protective of his sister who has Down syndrome, and apparently she was adopted. So he has that bond. So there is more to him. It makes him a more complex character. He's not just an airheaded jock. He's very sensitive to be calling to anyone questioning his intelligence, the way Devi's mother does. But something that really irked me was Devi not coming clean. She didn't say technically that it happened, but she didn't deny that they had sex. She let everyone believe she slept with Paxton. And, if the roles were reversed and Paxton was going around blabbing that, he would, we'd look at him like a douchebag. And potentially he could get in a lot of trouble. And I'm not saying she wouldn't. He didn't say anything to anyone, but it's just the way it was handled was interesting. I think they should have actually had a little bit more a kind of punishment for that in a way, if you know what I mean. But I definitely had issues with that. I honestly saw Devi and Ben Gross getting together from episode 1. I mean, it's the one thing about this is it's kind of predictable writing. The humor is kind of hit or miss, but it's pretty predictable writing to me. I did enjoy this drama, but there were times when the jokes kind of like left me hanging, like, why would they, what was that about, But yeah, the writing was very predictable. I kind of knew from A to B what was going to happen in this series. So not saying that's a bad thing, just saying either A, the writing needs to be a little bit more off the course, or maybe I just watch entirely too many Netflix and TV dramas. But yeah, pretty predictable that she was going to end up making out with Ben by the end of that movie. I'm hoping that, or the TV show, I'm really hoping that there is a season 2 though, because it looks like they're setting up a love triangle between Paxton, her, and Ben, because Paxton actually, after talking to his sister, who seems to be the one character that has the most common sense in this entire drama, basically lets Paxton know that he's a douche and that he should be going after the girl that he likes and don't worry about what other people think and yada yada. So he basically is trying to find her, and she's making out with Ben. But I saw it. I thought it was cool that the reason that John McEnroe was the narrator for most of this, except for when we had Andy Samberg, who did Ben's episode, which was a Ben-focused episode. The reason that John was the narrator is because he was her father's favorite tennis player. That was really cool. Now the coyote, I believe it was a coyote that kept showing up, and she kept saying, that's my dad. It's so symbolic, because when my mother died, I would see these birds, I swear, like everywhere. And I don't even know why that connection was made for me, because my mother wasn't even into birds, but it just seems like every day that I would think about my mother, I'd see these certain birds in the tree, and it just kind of made me have that spiritual connection. So for me, that was real. Even if it was crazy to everyone else, that was real. We look for symbolism, and things like that when we're grieving. So I do like how that was handled. I like that was actually in the series. Deb's cousin is very flaky. She's a flaky character. I actually didn't like her. I'm gonna be real with you. She was sweet, she was pretty, but she strung her boyfriend along, and then when she meets the guy that she's, being arranged to, she kind of clicks with him. She thinks he's cute, she thinks he's smart. So she kind of decides to, and now we'll say she did decide not to be connected or engaged to him either, but she's going to pursue him. And it's like, I don't know. I don't like how that was written. I'm like, it made her seem, you know, she's not somebody I could relate to. I didn't feel sorry for her. You know, I pretty much thought, you know, she's just a throwaway character because of that entire situation between, you know, her boyfriend at school and the arranged marriage that she flipped, you know, so quickly. So I wasn't happy with that. But yeah, I mean, all in all, I really liked it. I think my favorite character, which is probably just me, I'm probably nobody else feels this way, is Dr. Ryan, played by Niecy Nash. She reminds me so much of my own therapist that it's almost, when I was watching it, I kept looking and I'm like, huh. Because my therapist not only looks slightly like Niecy Nash, but talks to me exactly the same way. So that was, for me, awesome. So I really loved her character. I loved how, you know, she would take everything Deb was saying in, but she wasn't, when Debbie was being out of control, she just kind of stepped back and was like, well then, you know, what are you going to do about this? Why would you think this is okay? You know, and it was so cool. I don't know, I love that relationship between Dr. Ryan and Debbie. I think that one, to me, their relationship to me stood out more than her and her mother's relationship. So there was that. There was so much stuff in this. They compacted a lot. I mean, even with Fabiola coming out and her being in denial and liking the girl, but, you know, feeling like, oh my God, how could I like this girl? And it freaked her out and she had to step back and, you know, pretending to have a boyfriend, or actually going out with a guy or pretending to be heterosexual when she had no attraction to him whatsoever. And it was fairly obvious, which brings me back to Debbie. Debbie is not very observant to anyone outside of her bubble right now. Now, I would love to know what she was like as a friend prior to her dad dying. I really would. I would love to know if these anger, you know, outbursts and her being ashamed of her Indian side, which is what it seemed like to me, and, you know, her selfishness in a way, if all of that was pre-grief. I would love to know that. I'd love to have a little bit more backstory. I do love her father. He was so cheery. He was so optimistic and, you know, inspirational, and like he always had a smile on his face. I really, really, really love that about, you know, her father. And it really showed the dynamic between the two parents, and it showed that Debbie is actually a lot more like the mother, and that's why she butts heads, because both of them are not eagerly optimistic and, you know, very look at the bright side. They're more negative, the glass is half empty type people. So I did like that they showed that contrast. But yeah, and when you saw him in the flashbacks and stuff, it was actually heartbreaking because he was such a sweet guy, you know, and he just died too early. And he was, you know, he came to America to have the American dream. They showed them buying a house and, you know, him living his best life, and his life was cut too short, and it's sad, you know. And so it does a really good job of relating to both the mother and Debbie and the loss of the father. But outside of that, yeah, everything else was kind of rom-com. They, like I said, they dealt with a lot of issues that we deal with in everyday life. It's just a lot of them simultaneously, like the coming out, the abandonment issues, and, you know, having a sibling with disabilities, you know, basically trying to fit in high school, trying to, you know, achieve things that you normally couldn't achieve in high school, like popularity, having a rival academically, drinking for the first time, trying to lose your virginity. Like all of this stuff was compiled into 10 episodes, which I thought was very interesting. It's a lot to do. It was very ambitious. And for the most part, I feel like they pulled it off. But like I said, I just felt like the writing was a little predictable, and I do think that some of the characters were not likable, and some of the jokes they probably could have left out. But that is my opinion of Never Have I Ever. I think that it is definitely worth a season 2. I'm really hoping it gets renewed, but I want to know what you guys think. So leave me a comment below and let me know. And if you would like to sign up for jury duty, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to know who's next on the nerd ballot, hit the notification bell. Until next time, I can't wait for you to approach the nerd. Bye, guys. Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it, but hey, the party doesn't have to stop now. Click on one of these videos and keep it going.